All right, welcome everyone to the Introduction to Jira Align webinar. We're going to spend the next hour talking all things Jira Align, some good to know topics, we're going to go through a product demo and a little bit about Valiantis and how we help our customers with the tool. Just to kick off with some introductions, I'm Vicki Murphy. I am an enterprise solutions engineer here at Valiantis, and we are a platinum solutions partner with Atlassian. Like I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit more about us and our services later on today. I have worked with Jira Align since Atlassian purchased AgileCraft about 6 years ago, and I'm a certified SPC and Atlassian certified professional. I am also joined by one of our training coordinators, Kristen. She's going to be helping out by sending some chats or some links in the chat. So I'll mention those throughout this session as well. On the agenda for today, we're going to cover just a couple more slides, some good concepts that are need to know before we get into Jira Align. We'll then jump directly into that product demo. We're going to spend the bulk of the hour together walking through some of the most used areas of Jira Align, where we see customers getting a lot of value, especially really quickly after an implementation. And then we'll have time for a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to put them in the Q&A portion of Zoom, and we will answer as many as we can towards the end of this session. All right, let's jump in directly into those concepts here. So first, I like to align on the overall positioning of Jira Align because it is a little bit different than the rest of the Atlassian ecosystem. Jira Align really is designed for organizations that have implemented or are implementing a framework for scaled planning. Most commonly, this will be a scaled Agile framework such as SAFe or Spotify. Does not necessarily have to be Agile, but there are definitely some features of Jira Align that lend itself to Agile processes. If you've heard anything about Jira Align ever, you will hear that it is a really large tool intended for large organizations. We absolutely agree with Atlassian's stance on that. It is designed for large-scale enterprises. Atlassian likes to put the metric of organizations that have around 500 developers are typically best suited for Jira Align. Because it is a very large tool with a lot of capabilities intended for these large organizations, it does come at a higher price point than the rest of the Atlassian products. Because of the high price point and because of the large amount of functionality in the tool, we do find that smaller organizations may struggle with the overall breadth of the tool and the price point. If you feel like you might be in that boat, do hang on. We're going to talk a little bit about some other options in the Atlassian ecosystem and point you to some good resources for you. And just to at a high level talk about what Jira Align is all about, it's really designed to help us connect our strategy to our execution across the enterprise. And you're going to hear me say that phrase a lot throughout this webinar. It's really what Jira Align does at its core, gives us visibility into that connectivity of our work all throughout the different layers of scale. We've really seen Jira Align help organizations empower their teams by making work visible across the enterprise in real time and aligning their work to purpose, getting everyone on the same page. So we're really aligning to that enterprise strategy that our leaders have put forward for us is what Jira Align is going to really help us with. Whenever we talk about connecting our execution to our strategy, to kind of go behind the scenes a little bit, what Jira Align is really helping us do is connect people, work, and time across the enterprise. If you really think about all work, it boils down to those three concepts, right? What work is being done, who is doing that work, and in what time frame are they trying to accomplish that work? And I like to say that Jira Align really brings those concepts to the forefront. That is what it's really helping us connect in the tool. And so you see the different hierarchies here. We're going to walk through this. I know this is a lot on this slide, but it really starts to bring those that connective tissue of those three concepts to the forefront for us. On the left-hand side here, we have our people. We also often refer to this as our levels of scale. So the different groups of people throughout the organization. The very top, the enterprise tier. This is where we are setting that strategy. This is going to be your executives, your VPs, your strategic roles in your organization who are setting that annual 3-year, 5-year, 10-year strategy of where we want to go as an organization. Below that, we get into the portfolio level. This is where we're setting those themes. These might be a year or more long, really high-level strategic goals, if you will, that we are trying to achieve. And then we start to decompose that, right, into smaller chunks of work. We're going to get down into, if you're following the SAFe methodology, this is usually called the portfolio epic layer. Other methodologies might call this the initiative layer here. But regardless, this is that work that is a deliverable piece of work that we are accomplishing over typically multiple quarters or program increments. Excuse me. And this is where we're doing some of that high level budgeting as well. And so we'll see that in the tool. Break that down into the program. This is also the team of teams layer. Again, if you're following SAFe, this would be your release train layer, where you have a group of teams who are planning and executing together. They're working on your features, and these are going to correlate to our Jira epics, which I'll talk more about in just a second. And then below that, we have our team level. This is our Agile teams, our development teams, Scrum and Kanban teams. They are working on our stories and our tasks. And if you look below this in blue, these are the different time frames. Strategic snapshot, usually an annual look at our strategy. We often are talking about program increments. That's what you'll see in the tool while I'm in there, or quarters. And then we have our anchors or sprints and our releases as well. And off to the right here are other business vectors that we can plug into these different levels of scale. Things like our product tracking, if we need that cross slice of data, not just who is working on this, but how, which of our products or services is this helping us improve or create. We can start to track that. We'll see OKRs all throughout the instance. The idea of value streams, domains, and budgets as well. One thing to point out over here on the left is when we are talking about Jira Align, it really is intended to layer on top of our team tools. Most commonly, this will be Jira software or business projects. And so our teams are still working in Jira here at the team and up into that program level. And then program on up, we are talking about Jira Align. Just some really quick history around this. In Jira Align, you will see when I show the tool that there is a team area. That is because when it was first created, it was intended to be a full stack tool. It was made by a company called Agile, and it was intended to be a tool for the entire organization. About 6-7 years ago now, Atlassian acquired Agile, turned it into Jira Align, and they found that their team tool that they had been producing for years, Jira, really was a stronger team tool, and we stand by that. We have a lot of functionality in Jira that's so great for our teams to improve their efficiency, their visibility, things like our Agile boards, our dashboards, our filters, now all of the Atlassian intelligence functionality in cloud, in the large marketplace of team level tools that can connect into Jira, things like our repositories, our potentially reporting tools, things like that. We want to leverage all of those benefits at that team level. But then when we start to go above that team level, we start to be more and more limited within just Jira. And that's where Jira Align really comes in with visualizations and functionality to help us handle this planning at scale for hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of teams and individuals up into that program, portfolio, and enterprise level. And so we're not going to get into Jira today. We're going to focus on Jira Align, but just know that team level work, we're really focusing on that in Jira. Great. Just a little bit more good to know about Jira Align. It does have one add-on. It is called Enterprise Insights. This is a data lake for Jira Align that you are able to capture all of the data from Jira Align and connect it to a BI tool of your choosing. This does include common BI tools like Power BI and Tableau. It also includes Atlassian's own BI tool, Atlassian Analytics as well. That is an individual licensing purchase outside of Jira Align. Most commonly, we see organizations wanting to purchase this around the 6-month mark of implementing Jira Align. That's when we usually have enough data in the system for this to be valuable. Some new and upcoming. We have a lot of new updates and some known upcoming updates. First, over the last couple of months, Atlassian has given us the ability to connect Atlassian Guard for user management and security to Jira Align. So this is Atlassian Guard, if you aren't familiar with it, is Atlassian's user management tool, and it allows you to not only manage your users, but connect SSO and SCIM provisioning if you want to connect to an Active Directory. For cloud customers who are on a cloud-hosted version of Jira Align, as well as Atlassian Cloud and have purchased Guard, you would be able to connect Jira Align to that system. We will see a little bit today that we are seeing improvements around the rich text editors in Jira Align, specifically on our features at this time, and that does sync between the tools. Atlassian is making improvements to their road mapping functionality in Jira Align. Right now, we are mostly seeing this be small functionality tweaks and the load time improving. But we do know that Atlassian is working currently in a beta program, I believe, for a full UI update of their roadmap functionality, specifically in Jira Align. And then lastly, focus. So Atlassian at their Team 24 event in Barcelona in October announced a full new piece of functionality called Focus, and Kristen has kindly put the link to the announcement in the chat. We're not going to see Focus today. It is still being developed by Atlassian, but expected to roll out early next year in 2025 to Jira Align customers first. And so as we get more and more information about that, we'll start to show more and more in this webinar. And you can check out our YouTube channel where we will also post any updates that we are able to. So Focus is really intended to be Atlassian's central hub for our teams, our work, our goals, as well as our funds. And so it is going to be essentially a dashboarding tool to pull all those concepts together, connect to tools both within and eventually with outside of the Atlassian ecosystem to give more ability to do enterprise strategy and planning within the Atlassian suite of tools. So looking forward to more updates on that. Before we get into the tool, often through this webinar, we get the question of what does an implementation of Jira Align look like? Just to give you a rough estimate, this is typically a 3 to 6 month process to launch your first program or potentially a couple of programs in that timeline. We're going through these phases generally: discovery and planning, configuration, training, conducting a PI or quarterly planning event, and then we start to expand after that. Ways that this can go a little bit faster if your Jira system is cleaned up and ready to sync with a Jira Align. And also just the further you are into your process, usually the easier it is to make the configuration decisions in Jira Align, which can speed up your implementation process as well. If you want more details on this or want to start discussing estimates around what it would look like for you and your organization to implement Jira Align, please feel free to reach out to us. Great. This is our last slide. I promise we will get into the tool next. Just if you are hearing a little bit about Jira Align here and thinking it might be a little big for you at this moment, I do want to just mention that Atlassian does have other functionality in Jira. This is called Plans now, formerly Advanced Roadmaps, formerly Portfolio for Jira. That is a great starting place for smaller organizations or people who are really early stages of this scaled planning transformation. Plans gives us the visibility into our work item hierarchy within Jira across multiple Jira projects. Typically, that will mean across multiple teams, giving us the ability to roll our work up and start to plan out into the future. We also have visibility into our releases and our dependency management through plans as well. We will see today that Jira Align comes with additional functionality that expands on these concepts. But again, advanced roadmaps or plans is a great place to start if you are new to this scaling journey. All right, and as promised, we're going to get into the tool now. All right. Here's Jira Align, and I like to start this just with a quick navigational walkthrough because I think it starts to really demonstrate how some of those concepts we were talking about, in particular that people work in time piece, really does implement into the tool here and really is what the tool is truly centered around. So this is the homepage for Jira Align. Like you would expect, here's where we can get to our bookmarks or starred pages, as well as places we've recently been. And then we use this top navigation panel for navigating across the instance. Here you're going to start to see those terms of those levels of scale, right? Those groups of people, our enterprise tier, our portfolio, our program, our team. If we are using a product, we will see that here as well. From portfolio down to product, all of these are select lists. So here's where we will be able to access any of the portfolios or other entities that we have access to. There is permissioning within Jira Align, so you are able to grant people view and edit rights to the different portfolios and programs and teams as needed. We are really big fans of encouraging transparency in Jira Align. A big piece of the tool is connecting, again, that execution up to strategy. And so we want to be really cautious to not create silos within the tool that, while we might be doing that, still doesn't give us the visibility that we need. So just something to think about as you're exploring Jira Align. Here we're able to make a selection of a portfolio, such as my digital services portfolio, and it's going to jump me into the portfolio area. Throughout these different levels, we're going to first land in what we call the room. This is the high-level dashboard for each layer of scale. So here we have the portfolio room, and it's just going to show us some of those quick hit information, good to know pieces of that layer. At the top, or actually, we'll go ahead and continue down. We will then have below that any of the most used modules for that layer. You will see a lot of similarities as we go through the tool, where we're often accessing things like the backlog, the roadmap, the objective tree, at all the layers of scale, really. And so we will see those repetitively. We will also see some functions, especially at the program layer, that are specific to that level of scale. And at the bottom, we can get to additional items, our reports, and more pages as well. At the top of this left-hand bar, we are able to make that time selection. So here we've selected the people. It's going to show us the work automatically, so we'll recognize that term epics from the slides at the portfolio level. And then we can also make that time selection. So what this is going to do, we often refer to this as setting the context. This is that tier 1 filter across the entire instance, or across all of the modules that we're going to be looking at here. So we've set that people context. Now we can set that time context. Depending on the module, depending on the level of scale, you might select one or multiple of these, press apply, and then it's going to filter the room here, any of the other modules based on that context. So you can really hone in on the specific information that you are interested in. Just to point out a couple other things in the navigation, we can find areas that we've starred. Every module has a little star next to the title where you can favorite it. We can always jump to items here. So here's that hierarchy again of work. So if we want to just jump to the work without that people and that time filter applied, we can. We have a create button. Similar to our other Atlassian products, you can put permissions around who can actually create any of and all of these work items. And then over here, we do have a search bar. Jira Align does not have JQL like we have in Jira, but we do have the ability to search for specific work items and for it to show us a list grouped by work item here of those results. We do have in-app notifications, so you are able to see Jira Align notifications here. It does not currently integrate with the other Atlassian cloud products, but there are also email notifications to go along with these. We are able to input checklists. This is a great way to implement your process in the tool and guide people on what areas of the tool you want them to use for what process. So if we look at this PI planning checklist, we can point people directly to specific, these are actually links, so I can jump into the dependencies area that we'll see in a little bit. And then we can check these off and on as we go as well. For people who are new to implementing Jira Align, we really recommend using this. It just helps your users adopt the tool. And lastly, we also have in-app documentation. So every module that you click on, including the administrative pages for any admins on the call, you can click that help button, and it's going to show you the Atlassian documentation for that module. Super helpful, again, in the admin pages. Also on the reports, it tells you everything about the prerequisites, the data it's looking at, the how to interpret the report as well. So another great piece for adopting the tool. All right, so that's the navigation. Let's go ahead and jump into the enterprise tier and start poking around some of these modules. So here I'm going to choose my snapshot. So I want to look at all of my strategy and work items that apply to my 2024 strategy here. And this is what the strategy room looks like. Again, these are the quick hits for people who are trying to get that high level overview of all of our work here. Excuse me. At the top, we have our mission, vision, values. This is nothing new. It's the mission, vision, values of our organization. Who are we? What are we trying to do? What do we care about? Let's put it here in the tool so we can always keep that in mind. I'm going to scroll down on the left-hand side here. Let me zoom in one. Here we have the strategy pyramid, and this is one of the most popular views in Jira Align. It starts to showcase how we are rolling our work up into the higher levels of scale. What I love about this is it starts to really highlight the dual hierarchy that we have in Jira Align. So far, what we have really been talking about is our work, and that's represented here on the right-hand side. We have our themes, our epics, our features. We talked about these in the slides. That's the work we are trying to accomplish in different timelines by different groups of people. That's the real work, the deliverables, if you will. And those, of course, start to apply to how we're trying to accomplish and stay true to our higher level strategy, right? Our mission, vision, and values. That being said, while we are tracking that work and those deliverables, that's often a very technical approach, right? That's going to be the people who are really designing our products, designing our services, delivering those to our customers, whether those be internal or external. We also want to be able to track our outcomes. So that is the left-hand side here. That's where we start to get into the idea of goals and objectives. What are those outcomes that we as an organization are going to receive by delivering this work? And so we can start to track objectives at the portfolio and program, and even into the team level if needed. And these are really those OKRs. If you're familiar with John Doerr's book, Measure What Matters, it really closely follows the ideas and the framework that he puts forward. And those can roll up into higher level goals again. So strategic goals. There's also 3 additional layers of goals that you can enable in between values in this layer here. I also want to add at this point, most of the terminology in Jira Align is customizable. And so if strategic goals isn't what you call these, that's okay. We can customize it. Same with all of the work items over here on the right. But you can really start to get quite expansive with how many layers of goals you have and how those feed up into who we are and what we do here. Let's go ahead and scroll down and start. I want to talk a little bit about this outcome side of things. So we're going to scroll past the OKR heat map. It'll make more sense in just a moment and get into this OKR tree. So again, we have something called our strategic goals here, that highest level of goal in this example. But we can also have child goals that we would refer to as objectives typically. And I just want to go ahead and open one of these up so you can see what an OKR really looks like in Jira Align. An OKR is its own work item. And so we have a title, we have a description, and we have a ton of details over here on the right. Everything from dates to how does this feed into our higher level strategy with our parenting and our hierarchy here. What smaller objectives feed into this objective? Who is working on this from that portfolio and program perspective? Who are our stakeholders? Who's contributing to this? And a bunch of other fields, including the ability to track planned and delivered value on a scale of 0 to 10. So if you're participating in that type of value tracking, Jira Align has that for you as well. If I scroll up, the middle piece that I skipped past is the heart really of an OKR, the key results. So if that objective really is tracking our what are we trying to achieve, or key results are tracking our how. Every key result can have a goal. We have, let me press this here. These are the different types of key results we can have: percent, count, currency, net promoter score, or a custom score that we build out. We can have a baseline count as well as a current count. On a cadence that you can set for your organization, the owner of this can come in, or really anyone who might be participating, but often it's the owner, can come in and provide an update here. And so maybe we've reached 50. And when we do that, it will update the score if it is a notable increase here. That score is then present here on our, well, it looks like it didn't say for me, but it is present here on our key result itself. And then the objective itself is going to average any and all of the key results attached into this objective score here. So you can have multiple key results. Often we see 2 to 5 being a good measure here. And it's going to give us a score for that overall objective. Below the key results, we can also align work items. So depending on the level of objective determines what work items we can connect. But here I have some of those portfolio epics connected, and I can start to see the progress. And what I love about this is it is not, is this is a really good example of Jira Align connecting execution up to our strategy. I'm looking at an objective right now at my portfolio tier. I'm looking at a portfolio epic right here that's linked to that portfolio objective. But when I look at this progress, it is telling me the progress of the team layer. So I've connected stories up into my features, up into this epic. And how many points has the team, the subject matter experts that are delivering this work ultimately, how many points have they estimated this work is, and how many have they completed so far? So I always like to say you can't really fake data in Jira Align. You got to have that whole hierarchy connected to really start to receive value here, even at the upper layers. The data you're looking for is really at the team layer. And that's where we start with our implementation process typically, because we want to be able to leverage functionality like this. And it's always going to be looking down that hierarchy, forcing you to really connect that work across the enterprise. As you can see, you can also connect dependencies, risks, and impediments. And then we can have child objectives as well. In the strategy room, if we close that out, not only can we see this breakdown of our hierarchy of objectives and goals, but then we can see this heat map. So at a high level of all of our strategic goals, of all of our portfolio objectives across the PIs that we've identified are part of our 2024 strategy, where are we at with this? So as a leader, I can come in here and understand, are we starting to achieve the objectives and the value that we have set forward, the outcomes that we have set forward here? And then up at the top right, we start to have a little bit more information again, looking at the count of all of our work items, the progress of all of those, and then a little bit more of that goals to work item information here. All right. So that is the strategy room and how we might get that quick snapshot. I also just want to showcase that here we also have the roadmaps functionality. Now, roadmaps can be viewed at any tier, but here at the enterprise level, we might be using this to start to really plan out that vision of our work. So planning out our themes and our epics to really start to showcase how do we expect to be delivering this over the upcoming PIs. We have a lot of visualization options. We can view multiple layers of the hierarchy, single layers of the hierarchy. We can control how we are sorting this. And then we can also view the timeline in a couple different ways. So we can view it on a PI cadence, but also a calendar cadence, a kind of standard month by quarter here. And so you have a lot of options to work with the roadmap here. And just to highlight, this is that area that we are expecting to see a UI update in the coming months and likely into 2025. And so we are really excited to see this become a little bit more modern and a little bit more aligned to the rest of Jira Align now, but also the Atlassian ecosystem. So this is an interactive roadmap. You are able to move and drag and drop these bars, expand to see more details about the child items as well. You can also visualize milestones, which we will see in just a moment. That those are these stars that you see, as well as objectives, which are the flag here. So lots of visibility into the ability to start to cast that vision of where do we want to be completing our themes, where do we want to be completing our epics throughout this year. All right. As we start to understand that vision, we also need to start to set our priorities, and that's where we utilize our backlog. And our backlog here is actually one module that works for all of our work items. So up here at the top right, we could toggle into the other work item backlogs as needed. But we're going to stay here at the portfolio and at the epic backlog. You can view your backlog for the entire portfolio here, or the entire organization really, or you can view it based on PI. And that's what's happened here. Because I selected those PIs in my context over here, it's grouped this by PI. We'll just go ahead and expand this. At a high level, the backlog is really where we're caring about that prioritization. what we can do here is we see all of our epics. We're able to, of course, control what columns we see over here on the right, as well as what these labels represent. So you can start to understand the parent, the tags, the PIs that this is going to be worked in is how I like to look at this. We can expand to understand the child work. So here are all my child features, and I can control what columns I see for this as well. But really what we're often doing, especially prior to a PI coming up, or maybe at the beginning of the year even, is we're setting the priority. And we can do that in a couple of ways. We can drag and drop these work items, or we can also right click and actually use some of these quick buttons. Or my personal favorite is if you're wanting to look at this based on your MVP or your points here, as you sort, you can also apply the ranking, that sorting to the ranking as well. So lots of different options of what we can do here. But before we go any further, I want to go ahead and open up one of these work items. And so we've looked at our objectives and what those look like, but let's take a look at what an actual work item looks like. There we go. All right. So here's an epic. Before I scroll through this, I always like to mention this is a demo environment. We have absolutely everything turned on so you can see the possibilities here. We do not recommend turning everything on when you implement Jira Align. We recommend taking some time to identify what functions, fields, and tabs are really valuable to your teams and your process today. Turning those on so that it is a useful tool. It's not overwhelming. You're not cluttering the screen with a bunch of fields that don't make sense for your process. And that really helps with that user adoption as well. So if it feels a little overwhelming, I would agree with you. I wouldn't recommend turning all of this on right as you implement the tool. But our epics here do have several different tabs. On the details tab is where we're capturing that high level or really that information about when we are working on this, what this work is, and who is working on it. So we have our description, of course. We have a lot of different select fields that we can utilize here. We start to understand the place of this work item in the hierarchy. So this is showing us the parent work item. As you go down the hierarchy, you'll see the full hierarchy upwards. So if I was on a feature, I would see the parent epic and that parent epic's parent theme here. On the right-hand side, there's also a requirement hierarchy where you can see how this epic relates to, or all of the children of this epic and all of the, I like to say, grandchildren as well. So lots of visibility here into the full hierarchy of work. Below that is where we start to identify who is working on this. So we can identify those programs as well as the overall owner. We can identify when this is being worked on. So again, that time element. So what program increments, or if you call them quarterly increments, that works as well. Is this going to be accomplished in? Are we going to be working on this in? And then we get into the prioritization and the estimation. Jira Align does have an out-of-the-box WSJF or weighted shortest job first calculator. This is interactive. It does align very well if you're following the SAFe methodology. Again, this is a piece of SAFe and it works exactly how we would expect from that model. But here you can fill in the different values that are part of the calculation. And then it's going to calculate that for you automatically. And you'll notice there's a quick apply this to our global ranking. So if you want to use this, fill it out for all of your epics and then rank your backlog by it, it's very easy to do so, as we've seen. You can fill that out for every single program increment that this epic will be worked on in. And then you can also estimate the work. So you can estimate through points, through t-shirt size, or a couple of week-based estimations. Most commonly, we see points and t-shirt size being used. Again, for every single, excuse me, for every single PI that you plan to work on this in, and then what is that total as well. We have additional fields here. Everything from date fields that we plan to use. If you don't like using WSJF, or that's not a part of your process really, you can use this strategic score and analysis, excuse me, strategic score or effort swag for estimation / prioritization in some cases. We can track the strategic driver. This is how we can start to understand what category of work are we doing the most. So good things here are good things that we've seen customers track here are how much of our work is keep the lights on work, how much of the work is actually R&D or innovative work. We can track all of that through this field. And there's a report on this that's actually getting an update in the next release to be even more useful and even more user-friendly. So we're excited about that. Below, we'll see any linked work items, starting with the child work items. Again, here we can see all of the child features, but we're looking at the progress based on, if to yourself you said the team estimate and the team progress, you would be correct. Here we can start to see all of the roll-up information from that team level again. And if we scroll up in the top right, we're able to track the overall state of our work as well as that progress once again. Just to click through a few of the other tabs here, the design tab has a field if you want to capture the design hypothesis, you can. The intake form is a customizable form as you are creating these epics. If you want to collect specific pieces of information, you can here. Benefits kind of takes a summary of all of those fields of several of those fields we've talked about, and also has a customizable form here that we can collect more information about the current state, the future desired future state, etc. The value tab really focuses on this value score here. And so this is a customizable scorecard. I've also seen this used for prioritization. You can control the categories or questions here. You can control the answers that are available. You can also apply weighting to these. It then is going to average your scores together, and it's going to tell you how this compares to your other epics. And under the Analyze button, you're able to dig a little bit deeper into that comparison of the average versus this specific epic or initiative. And that can also be applied to your backlog ranking as well. Typically, I will see this or the WSGIF or the strategic score used. I don't typically see all three. I think it's good to align on a single prioritization method. In fact, we've worked with some customers where for SOC compliance, they needed to align on a single estimation method. And so they utilized, I think that customer went with WSGIF, but we've seen others utilize this. Milestones, every work item can have, I believe, 25 milestones. They will have a description, a start and due date, a state, and a category here. And those are what shows up on the roadmap that we saw. The spend tab here is where we can do some high-level budgeting. We can put in a budget for each individual epic, and then it's going to calculate these pieces of information for us. So our forecasted, estimated, and accepted spend. All of these really rely on us working in the tool for typically 2 PIs or at the team level, at least 5 or 6 sprints to get the roll up here. So it's going to be looking at how quickly are we typically completing our story points. We need to plug in information like either a blended rate for our program increment or cost centers for our team members. And then it's going to calculate this information for us. But again, a lot of roll up from that team level. What I love about these calculations is you can expand them to see more information, really specifics about what work is included here, and even the calculation for each individual story it's considering. There is a lot of documentation on how Atlassian or how Jira Align calculates these metrics. It works for some customers. Some customers might want to do something a little bit more custom, and that's where we really leverage the ability to connect to BI tools. Right. And the forecast tab. So for each work item, for our epics and our features, we can come in here and forecast how much work do we expect each program and each team in that program to put forward for this epic for each PI. And we can do this epic by epic, but in just a moment, I'm going to flip to the portfolio tier and show you how we can do this at a more aggregate view to really understand our forecast and our capacity. Right. And that's our lovely work item. And so most of the work items look very similar to that epic, but if you're working on a feature or a theme, you would have some different fields available. All right. And we're still here in the backlog. So the last thing I'll mention here is that we can also view this backlog as a Kanban view. So there is a Kanban-esque view available where we can see our work, again, separated by PI. Throughout the different phases of our work. And there is a method to customize these statuses or states as well through what we call a process flow. And this is interactive. You can drag and drop as you would expect. All right. Let's go ahead and jump down to that portfolio tier now. Now that we've looked at a lot of what we're doing here at the strategy level, where we might be setting that prioritization, setting that vision. And at the portfolio level, as we're planning out this work, again, you'll see that we have our backlog. We can view all of our epics. We can still view and manipulate that roadmap at this level. But once we have that kind of vision and that priority set, now what are we actually able to accomplish in API? What are we planning to work on and what can we actually do? And that's where our forecast and our capacity comes into play. These are two different modules, but they work very, very closely together. We're going to start at the forecast option. We just looked at the forecast tab on our epics. And so this is very, very similar. It is just an aggregate view for the full PI. Go ahead and open this up. Again, typically I will see this happening after we have prioritized our work for the program increment. So here we can apply the backlog rank even to make sure that we are understanding the highest priorities for this upcoming PI. We can also view this at a program or team level and at a feature or an epic level as well. So a couple different options to work with depending on how you are conducting your planning, really. Within this grid, here we see all of the epics that are in this program increment for this portfolio. We can control what fields we see here, everything from the owner to the parent to the estimates that we are looking at. And then we can start to plug in that team's forecast. If you do this on the Epic tab that we just looked at, it will apply here. If you do this, which is what we see right here, if you want to come to this view, it's just more of a table view for all of them. As you start to breach a team's capacity, let's say I'm going to do, we'll just put in something kind of crazy here, 1,800 points. It's going to turn red. So this serves as that cut line, if you will, of this individual team's capacity, which you can see up here at the top. Now, so once we understand that, we can then go back to the drawing board of, can this team really do this work? Does somebody else need to take this on, etc. I really like to think of Jira Align as pulling together communication moments for our leaders, for our teams, to understand and make a really predictable plan, right? That's really what we're often trying to get with or get to or accomplish whenever we're talking about implementing any type of scaled processes. Let's get predictable so we know when work is going to be delivered. Here we can start to see that we're breaching the capacity pretty early for all of these teams. So maybe we need to add more people, add more teams, reprioritize, things like that. But what we can also do here is work with the team's capacity. And so this is where that second module comes into play of the capacity module. And the capacity module is going to give us the ability to set and understand how much work a team and then rolling up into a program and a portfolio can accomplish in a PI. So in that quarterly planning increment. I'm going to scroll down here and I'm actually going to click into one of these programs first. So here I am at my team of teams level, and I'm looking at all of my teams. Here I can see how much work they can complete each sprint. You can pull from historical data, you can set a default here, or you can actually override this if you know there's something big happening, a big training event, a big a holiday coming up, anything like that. Here you can set how many sprints. Again, this can be automatic or overridden. You can add in buffer points or capacity percentage. These really represent the same thing, but if you're thinking of doing that 80-20, 80% work, 20% growth for your teams, you can make sure that you aren't taking 100% of their capacity here. And that gives you your available capacity for that PI. If I scroll up, then we see this program level summary, right? How many teams do we have? Quick hits here on the metrics, but really what we love is this bar. I would love to say this is a really egregious example, but I will say 9 times out of 10 when we work with customers and they start using this functionality, they start really planning this information out, this is what they see. They are way over planning for their teams, and teams generally want to do the work, right? They want to say yes. They're just going to keep saying yes to everything. the best customers or the best experiences that we've had with some of our customers is when leadership sees this and understands no one's going to complete 5,000% of their capacity. Let's go back and make sure that we are taking things out of these teams' plans so they can actually accomplish work. And again, we can get predictable. And so this is what we can do at the team/program level. And then if we go back, this is the summary of all of our programs that feed into our portfolio. So again, here we are able to filter by specific programs, as well as which level of work are we actually looking at here. There's also an audit log, and you have the ability to lock down who can edit this versus view it. So you have a lot of control for this functionality. All right. Those are the quick hits here at the portfolio level. We've already looked at the backlog and the roadmap again. So let's go ahead and jump down to that program tier for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and open up the mobile program. So again, we're kind of trickling down that hierarchy, right? We've set the vision. We've broken that down into what big work items are we trying to accomplish with our portfolio epics? And now it's time to break that down into our features and for our teams to plan out those features. They might still be looking at the backlog for sure, likely looking at the roadmap, still looking at our forecast and capacity that we saw. But here's where we introduce really what has for a long time been the shining star of Jira Align, especially the program level, the program board. And the program board is nothing new. It's essentially a grid where we can plan out each team's work for the upcoming PI. So in the left-hand column here, see if I can zoom out just a little bit. We have all of our teams represented as our rows. And then we have all of our columns represented as, or all of our sprints represented as columns. And what teams are doing here is they're planning out their features, which are represented by our little rectangles. And they are trying to predict when they are going to be completing this feature. What the team will typically do, let me open up another one over here, is during a big room planning event or a PI planning event, they're taking these features, which they can also see over in Jira still, and they are decomposing that into their stories. And those stories are syncing over here. And as they decompose that into their stories and give that high-level estimation, we like to call them skeleton stories. They're putting a title to it, they're giving a description, they're putting an estimate on it, and they're saying when they think they can complete this in their sprints for the PI. That all syncs over here, and then they can indicate when they are going to complete this within the PI. Multiple teams can also support a feature through linking stories or just adding in a team here. And so they can start to do this planning together. We'll also notice below that we can also start to track dependencies. I'll flip to the dependency module in just a moment, but here we are able to understand how teams might be dependent on each other to actually complete this feature. And so if there are real blockers, we can start to identify that through the dependency module. We can also link risks, which we'll see in a moment as well. So we can link risks to our features to understand what risks we have for completing this plan. And if I scroll up, also if there are ever any planning issues for a feature or any of the work items that display on the program board, which is going to be our objectives, our features, and our dependencies, they will display here. There's color coding out of the box controlled by the system, but we really agree with it. And it's going to also change the color of that work item here on the program board, as you can see. This might feel like a little bit of an overwhelming view. At first it can be, but there is the ability to, display more information through some of the different view options here. And there's also a legend over at the right that tells you all of the shapes, all of the symbols, all of the colors. In general, I like to apply stoplight mentality. Gray, blue, green, we're doing good. Red, yellow, orange, we have a potential problem we should look at. What is really valuable about this program board is, again, the concept of a program board is nothing new. We've been doing this for decades on a lot of times when we were all in person, we would do this on something like a whiteboard with a lot of stickies and tape and string. As we become more remote, you might be using something like a whiteboarding tool, everything from Confluence whiteboards, Miro, Mural. I've seen PowerPoint being used, but the value of getting this into Jira Align is that this serves as a real-time updating report in the tool. So not only do we use this during our planning, but here you can see date-wise, we're actually in the middle of our PI, right? Actually, I guess the sprint would have just ended today. And so here we can start to see the work that we are starting to complete. But we have some red items. What is going on here? What are we not completing? What might get pushed to another sprint, pushed to another PI? So we can use this, especially if you're someone like a release train engineer, program manager, to understand how we are actually completing our work through the PI. All right. So we talked about our features that we can see here on our board. We can also see dependencies, which are these little plus icons or Chevy symbols. And to talk a little bit more about that, I'm going to quickly just show actually, let's just open one of these up really quick, and then we will look at the dependency matrix. This. Dependencies are their own work items. They have their own mini workflow. They are intended to represent a handshake between two teams in the tool, most commonly to complete a feature, but maybe also an epic. So here we are able to collect a lot of important information, like what work item is actually being impacted by this, what teams are also involved in this, who is requesting this work, who does it depend on? Again, that handshake between two teams. Below here, we can also link stories. How are we going to complete the work for this dependency? Through our stories over in Jira, syncing into Jira Align. And if we scroll up, we can say, when do we need this work by? And when has the dependent team committed to this work? And so we can track a lot of information here and then visualize it on something like our program board. Or under our reports here in the program level, we can also see our dependency matrix or the dependency wheel, where we can start to really understand how many dependencies are existing between different teams and different programs here. And if we have high numbers, dependencies are handoffs. Handoffs slow us down. Or is there some movement on the teams that we could make a rearranging to really enable the teams to complete work on their own? Great. While we're here, just because we're running a little short on time, there's just so much to show in Jira Align these days. I'm also going to switch to the risk roam report. Risks are also individual work items that we can create in Jira Align. Jira Align uses the roam methodology that is supported by SAFe to really help us categorize how we are solving these risks. So can go ahead and just open one up. It's just a standard work item. We collect information like PI, owner, how does this relate to our work? What's the status? And then we can also choose that roam categorization here. The risks themselves are really helpful, but what I think is even more helpful is the risk roam report, where you can start to see at a high level how each PI we are going about actually handling these risks. Hopefully we are resolving most of them, but are we owning, accepting, and mitigating some, and how are we going to eventually move those over to resolved? And some quick hit information about our estimated impact and occurrence of the risk. All right. Just really quickly, to jump back over to our slides, I just want to talk briefly a little bit about Valiantis and who we are. We are a fully dedicated Atlassian partner and IT consulting company that this is a little bit about who we are and what we do here. We are a global organization. We are a platinum Atlassian partner. We have been a partner for, I believe, 16 years. And we do have the largest collection of Atlassian certifications as well. And that does also include Atlassian's Agile certification as an organization. These are just the big hits of what we do with our customers. Everything I like to call us a full end-to-end support customer. So consulting, licensing, we do custom solutions for our customers if something in the marketplace, if there isn't an answer for your challenge in the marketplace, managed services as well as training. In the Jira Align world, we help customers with really all of these areas, everything from full implementations, cleanup services to training new users as well. And then a training class that I want to mention specifically for this audience is our Jira Align Bootcamp. This is a one-day public training course that is designed for people who have not implemented Jira Align yet, but you want to get some hands-on experience and explore this topic a little bit more. During this time, we do give you access to a Jira Align instance. Jira Align's a little bit different than other Atlassian products. You can't just go spin up a new instance whenever you do have to go through Atlassian for that. And so if you're ready for that step and to purchase licenses, we like to give you some hands-on experience during this class. We touch on all of the topics covered today and more, walk you through how we use them, talk implementation tips as well. So our next class is after all the holidays on February 5th, 2025. And there's a discount code of VAL20 for 20% off if you're interested. If you'd like more information, we've sent a link in the chat, as well as we will send our emails. Please feel free to reach out to us if you want more information on this. All right. I want to just check on the Q&A. We ran a little bit over today. Let's see here. See if we have any questions. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in to the program room, and then I will get to the questions. So just another really fantastic piece of the program area is the program room. This is where I like to call this the one-stop shop for anybody interested in the program information. It pulls together really all the modules we just looked at, I guess, except for the program board, but we can see our forecast versus capacity information, how our checklist information, what's our overall progress looking like for this PI. What's our team load? How are we loading up each individual team, and what progress are they making here? This is a snippet of our backlog. What's the backlog for this PI? This is in priority order. You can expand to see the stories as well. You can see your objectives here. I'm going to scroll up. Our risks, as well as there's a dependencies module as well. So again, one-stop shop for all that information. This is really great alignment for that team of teams layer. I see this being used in a lot of team meetings, team ceremonies, and you can also filter based on an individual team as well. And so this can be a really great stat if you're doing anything like a Scrum sync, a program sync, anything like that. This can be helpful to go around the room and hear an update from everyone. Really quick, I think the last thing that I will show here is the work tree. So a really common question we get is, where can I see my full hierarchy in one place? Well, PI by PI here in what we call the work tree, we can not only see this, I think this is a great quick visual of our overall progress from feature, story, task, story points, how much time is left in the PI, but also we can expand here and see all of the work from epic on down. And if you go up to the strategy level, you can also go up to the theme and strategic goals as well. And so here we can start to expand all the way from epic down to stories. We have a lot of progress information. This is, again, all roll-up information. Why I like to show this is because this is one of the areas of the tool that becomes immediately valuable. As soon as you start getting your work in here and connecting it up the hierarchy, this starts to populate. The dependencies, these have been areas that when we've worked with leaders who at organizations who have implemented this tool, they are really happy about this functionality because this is something they've been lacking in the tool set they currently have. They haven't been able to see this information all in one place. And so this becomes immediately useful. Again, the dependencies, the program room. So we start to get work in the tools. Those are areas that become immediately useful. As we start to use the tool, that portfolio tier becomes more and more useful because we have more and more data around things like those finances and roll-up information. So just some quick hit thoughts on that. All right, there are a couple of questions. We have 2 minutes left. I'll get to. Is there an ability to create custom reports in Jira Align? Within the UI, we don't have a custom report builder, but this is where we get into the Enterprise Insights add-on I was talking about. By and large, every Jira Align customer that we work with purchases Enterprise Insights. It gives you that ability to take data out of Jira Align into a BI tool. If we think about really all of Atlassian's portfolio of products, they make tools that are meant for the masses, right? So Jira Align is no different. The modules that they have, the modules that they are focusing on implementing and updating are really the modules that everyone finds useful and the reports that really apply to really the majority of their customers. every customer we work with has the need for custom reporting, something, a metric that their organization cares about that our other customers don't, that their leadership is interested that others aren't. And so we wind up going down that route of enterprise insights connecting to a BI tool. Again, Atlassian Analytics is an option. Tools you already use like Power BI or Tableau are also options to build out that custom reporting. And so again, we want to be using Jira Align typically for a little bit. We find that 6-month mark, 3 to 6 months is usually a good time for purchase for those enterprise insights licenses because we have data to actually work with. So just some thoughts on that. All right, it looks like we are at time. So if you didn't get your question answered or you have follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to us. The recording of this will be put up on our YouTube channel. And we also put regular updates on the Jira Align ecosystem on our YouTube channel as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, thank you all for attending. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and your week.